You know what this is? It's a camera, obviously. And every time I used to pick this up, there would be a voice inside my head that said, your photos aren't good enough. I hate that voice, but I spent so much time listening to it that I almost turned my back on the 30 years as a photographer and just packed it all in. How's it? They got to a point where I was sitting there in my photography studio, I'd won awards, all this kind of stuff, but I couldn't shake this feeling that I was just a complete fraud, that my photographs are no good and everybody else is just full of confidence. And that's been with me since pretty much I started at photo school. I was planting little seeds of self-doubt throughout my career. Over time, they had grown into this horrible hedge that was blocking off anything positive about my photography from actually reaching me. By the time I decided to do something about it, that hedge had grown into this massively tangled prison that I couldn't see a way out of. And I made the classic mistake of thinking that the way to solve this was just to get rid of the hedge entirely.
The fundamental thing about my personality is that I think I'm an imposter.
Oh, I wish I'd had those quotes to hand when I was first planting those seeds of this ridiculous hedge, because it would have helped me so much. You know, to hear somebody like Sally Mann, a respected and very well-known photographer, share similar ideas would have been amazing. It would have also have helped me do what I should have done, which is actually talk to somebody. I should have opened up and shared my self-doubt with other people. Instead, I turned it all inside. I went, oh, I've got all this experience. I went to photo school. I run a studio. I have all these awards. So I can't possibly be doubting myself. That's only for losers. That's ridiculous stuff. So if I had spoken to somebody earlier on, opened up, it would have made the resulting process that I'm going to go through with you now feel so much easier. There's this weird thing in photography where everybody talks about their work in somewhat negative terms, especially hobbyists. It's always about like what's wrong, what could be fixed, how can it be improved, never really celebrating the positive things. And I'd fallen a hook, line and sinker for that. I thought if I only focus on the negative things, then that's me doing a good job. It's me trying to improve. But what was happening is that I'm thinking about everything from the wrong direction. I'm looking for mistakes. So I did a little bit of a hippy-dippy thing. I saw a post online about helping your self-esteem, and it suggested that you cut out and put on the wall, somebody you can see it, praise that you receive. But you know what? I actually get a fair amount of praise. I run a studio, it's got reviews on Facebook. So I printed them out and I put them on the wall. Consequently, every time that little voice started to nag me, I would remind myself that there are actually people who like my work. And that was such a massive mind shift for me that it helped reinforce some positive things. It gave me a bit of breathing space, a bit of elbow room within that hedge to start clearing a path through it. That was the key to all of this. Not to get rid of the hedge in its entirety, but just to cut a hole through. That's a far more manageable thing. But of course, it's not enough just to kind of big yourself up and say, hey, Alex, you're so cool. Look at all these people who like your photography. I had to get to the root of where a lot of these seeds had been coming from. And that was comparison. At the time, one of the great sources of comparison, in a very negative sense, was, hardly surprising, social media. I spent all my time looking on, especially places like Instagram, and you see all these photographers who at this point are often younger than me, being super confident, showing photographs, saying, look at this, I've got all these clients, look at this. And I'm sitting there thinking, I've lost out. I'm just a fraud. Alex, this is very destructive behavior. You need to get away from this. All it is doing is taking up space in your head. It's giving fuel to that voice saying, hey, you're not good enough. Look at those people over there. So I decided to just get off Instagram. So now I haven't got all these voices competing and trying to take up space in my head, I was able to look inwards and go, what do I have that's a skill that I enjoy? I've been working in my studio for like 10 years. I know my way around lighting. I'm going to play with the lights. I'm going to experiment with stuff. I'm just going to just have fun, not with an aim in mind, but just to see what comes up, to reconnect with the simple pleasure of just tripping the shutter. But when I was doing all that experimenting, trying stuff out, something else very interesting happened, which I wasn't really prepared for. Now, I've debated about sharing this section, mostly because, once again, I'm afraid of that comparison thing, of what people are going to say. But I decided, in the spirit of this video, I'm going to share this. I am what I call a lazy perfectionist. I had especially got to this point where I would do the most disgusting things that I've ever done in photography, which was to take photographs that were reasonably good photographs, obsess about finding all the flaws so nobody could say anything negative about it, but, and this is the kicker, and I'm thinking you're going to laugh or fall off your chair or something, I would deliberately leave mistakes in so that when I was trying to sell the family their photographs, I could point out what was wrong with it. Just to show, hey, look, this is what I know. It's like, how ridiculously self-destructive is that? To point out my own mistakes that I'd left in on purpose, but at the same time, be obsessed about getting everything right. I mean, it's nuts. This is what happens when that hedge just gets out of control. It gets its tendrils into you. It's too much. So I decided this is not healthy for me whatsoever. So I made a conscious effort to bite my tongue every time I thought I was going to say something negative about my work. I also gave myself permission to post photographs without worrying about what other people were going to say about them. Because for years, I'd stopped taking personal photographs because I was really worried that if I was going to post something that was personal, that wasn't work related, and people didn't like it, then that would just be confirmation of my inability to hack it as a photographer. So at this point, I'm being positive about myself. I'm not saying negative things about my photography. I'm not comparing myself to other people. I've got some space. I'm clearing a hole. I'm starting to see some daylight on the other side of this hedge, but I still need to make the final push. So what's been happening over my career is that I have built up reinforcement in this hedge by copying other people's styles of photography, not trying to come up with anything original, leaving mistakes in, things of that nature. So that when somebody says, I don't like the photograph or I don't want to buy it or what have you, I can sit there and go, well, it's not really my photography, is it? So that's okay. Nobody has dismissed my work because I was afraid. I was afraid that if I put out work that was just mine, what I liked, what I felt was cool, and if somebody said they didn't like it, then that would just be the end of it. So I started putting out work. I forced myself to do it. And I forced myself to do it without any expectation, to just create something that I liked and to share it with people. And if they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. And I wish that, again, I'd had this conversation with myself, like I had a time machine to go back, because I would tell myself that you can only be an imposter if you are pretending to be something that you are not. All of that time at the studio, the bad things came from me trying to be something that I was not, copying other people's photographs, their styles and their approaches, trying to compare myself to people who are hanging in the National Gallery, things of that nature. Once I started photographing pictures that I liked and for myself and just doing things that felt right for me, I stopped feeling like I was that imposter. That hole in the hedge had opened up. Now, granted, it doesn't happen immediately. It took some time, but that time would have been sped up talking with somebody. And I still get the little voice from time to time. But now I have some tools to deal with it. I recognize what's going on. So if you're feeling like you are also trapped in this hedge of doubt, don't try and rip out the whole thing. Just look at the tools that you have at your disposal and cut a path through it.